Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Ffinlo Costain. Pelican Ag is a venture capital company that specialises in scaling regenerative agriculture and rebalancing food supply chains to improve ecological and nutritional outcomes and food provenance. Simon Evill is a founding partner of Pelican Ag, and I started by asking him to explain exactly what venture capital is.
Venture capital is a very specific form of finance intended to fund an extremely high-risk company that also has a high potential. And it typically funds early-stage innovations, very young companies with a handful of people involved in them, who need quite a substantial amount of capital to fund them through to profitability and further growth. And there are different types of venture investors that focus on particular stages of company, particular innovations and geographies, but that's the general gist.
And with venture capital, because it's high risk, what is the attractiveness of this particular kind of investment?
The returns can be very high. I mean, to give an example, one of the early investors in LinkedIn realized a 50x return. Now, that's an exceptional case. But generally speaking, venture investors are looking for companies that can return the portfolio. So if they invest in 10 or 20, 30 or 40 companies, depending upon the risk positions that they've taken, the stakes that they've taken, and how they've allocated that capital, because bear in mind, you can hold some of that capital back and then invest it in further rounds. So you can double or quadruple down into the companies that are doing well within your portfolio. There's a way of, there's a playbook, if you like, and various strategies that venture investors use to try and achieve high returns for their investors. But the capital is locked up for a considerable period of time, you know, typically speaking between 5 and 10, sometimes longer amount of years. And so it's an asset class, but it's one of many. And in the investment world, generally speaking, venture is a tiny slice of people's investment portfolios, but it fulfills a role because it's there to back innovations within the economy.
How can this sort of investment help to scale regenerative agriculture?
Indirectly, I think is probably the fairest way to put it. So, regenerative agriculture in and of itself is a movement of farmers and actors within the supply chain and other people involved in food and farming. It's a movement of changing management practices. And on a deeper level, it's a mindset shift in the way that human beings approach land management and their relationship with nature. So, obliquely, technology, let's put it this way. Up until fairly recently, we've developed technology with a reductionist mindset. We've developed technology for addressing symptoms and making our lives easier in every aspect of our economy, and food and farming has been no different. And synthetic agriculture, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, large tractors, plowage, tillage equipment fall into that category. We're now entering a different phase where humans have the potential to develop technology for regenerative outcomes, technology which lends itself to people and communities and individual farmers and land stewards managing land towards ecosystem health and better profits and a more healthy rural community. And that's what we're trying to tap into. That's what we're trying to invest into, is the technologies that help that.
So give us some examples. What sort of projects are you funding at the moment?
We've just invested in a soil lab analysis technology called Terra, a Canadian company. It's a Raman spectroscopy device, a high-powered resolution device that looks at soils that are coming into the lab for analysis and is able to perform a rapid set of analyses which are being done in a fairly analog and human-intensive way at the moment. So it's offering a potential step change in the way that soil labs analyze and process soils that are coming into their laboratory. And we think that that is going to be very important for speeding up, for example, how soil health is done at scale across the world.
And is the no fence collar part of your portfolio as well?
Yes, that was our second investment into no fence. Yes, we've taken a bullish view on the potential of rotational and managed grazing. It's a movement. It might be a marginal part of the livestock management industry, but it's growing very rapidly. It started, as you know, many years ago, but it has trade-offs, and it's a labor-intensive operation, particularly moving mobile fences around landscapes. So depending upon a farmer's setup, depending upon your hedgerows or your perimeter fence, there are many cases in which using a virtual fence, which is what no fence have developed, is hugely advantageous. One area where it's very helpful is grazing through woodlands, where it's just totally impractical. And in some cases, you're not allowed to put fencing in there, and you wouldn't want to put fencing in there anyway, because it's a habitat that you want wild animals to access. And yeah, so no fence is one of the leading virtual fencing companies in the world, and we see huge potential in that as a tool to help farmers who are already on the path towards rotational or more advanced regenerative grazing strategies.
Now, we've discussed the way that venture capital is high risk, but how do you decide which projects you're going to invest in?
Well, in a very pithy sense, both Chris and I, the founders of Pelican Ag, we come from impact investing backgrounds. So we come with a set of, I guess, skills and sort of protocols that lend themselves to analyzing companies with, I said, essentially two lenses, if you like, the impact lens and the financial return business potential dimensions to a company. We've been massively inspired by studying regenerative agriculture, and we've taken elements of regenerative design and management into our diligence process. And I think that's been very useful. So, without giving a huge amount of way, we're trying to look at the problems holistically and analyze companies holistically and make decisions on that basis. I think the more interesting dimension to taking regeneration as a philosophy and as a set of management systems into venture capital is to figure out the best ways to help the companies we invest into and the portfolio to achieve the outcomes that we all want to see a transformed landscape in the UK, but also globally, and to start to fight back against challenges such as climate change, soil erosion, the poor nutritional quality of our food, etc.
And do you think that there are particular barriers to attracting more venture capital into the regenerative farming space?
Yes, I mean, it's highly sort of nuanced. So on one level, there is a great deal of capital out in the world that is seeking impact as well as financial returns. However, the road of good intention, or the path to hell, is paved with good intentions. So an awful lot of capital has gone into solutions which, I guess, from our perspective, are not necessarily going to be very effective, or at worst are going to generate huge unintended consequences. There's been a huge amount of capital in our space that has gone into novel foods and into vertical farming and other strategies which don't deal with the root cause of the issue. They don't help farmers manage their land better. They don't deal with the poor nutritional quality of the food that we're eating globally, or its lack of diversity, or the fragility of the food system, the fact that it's so centralized that it sort of is creaking at the seams. So we've been on a long journey to educate other venture investors and other institutional investors that would invest into our fund, so that they can understand better the potential and the inherent logic of the regenerative food and farming movement, and why it's such a vital area that is just massively underfunded. And it's at the moment, regeneration is underfunded at the venture capital level, but as you know, it's underfunded across the board, whether that's banks providing loans to farmers, or whether that's critical pieces of infrastructure like small abattoirs, that would dramatically help or local food supply chains that would dramatically help us to deal with some of these sort of multifaceted challenges.
That was Simon Evill from Pelican Ag. More news on our website, 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.